You're a talk show animal. You're like one of those goddamn creatures out of Greek mythology. Half man, half desk.
It's my first time. So, Mr. Schiller, Mr. Ken Schiller, I really appreciate your being here and your sharing of your valuable time to talk to us a little bit about your consulting life and everything that you've done in fracking. You had mentioned just a little bit ago that, you know, what we do in this business and the years you spent as a consultant. A lot of guys who work in the field as regular operators, they think that maybe becoming a consultant is like a way out the door from having to work a hard rotation and a hard shift. What does it take to become a consultant? Or what did you do to become a consultant?
Well, thanks for inviting me, Christian. Yeah, it's been I get this conversation quite a bit, actually. Throughout my career as a consultant, I've actually helped bring guys up from the service side and brought them into more of a consulting role or a leadership role there. The path, I can tell you right off the bat, is undefined. And the reason I say that is because, you know, a lot of what we do, and depending on, you know, it doesn't really matter which industry you're in, there's a lot of politics in human civilization, right? And so the path for me was about building a relationship with somebody that was, let's call it shot caller or a superintendent, and kind of performing in a service role for that guy. And then also, you know, not being afraid to have those communications with him when problems arose or when just, you know, anything else popped up. Just be willing to provide that service continuously and not be afraid to say, I don't know. But, you know, always follow that up with, you know, I'm not really sure, sir, but I will get that answer for you and you'll have it within 5 minutes. So knowing where to find the solution is probably the most important part. You know, a lot of guys that, you know, I've kind of come across are like, well, how do you know you're ready? Well, you're never ready. You're never ready to be in a consulting role because there is no training program to be a consultant. There is no training program to be a leader. And especially in the oil field where it's mostly testosterone based, you know, we have a lot of alphas that are involved in the operation. And so how do you manage alphas? You know what I mean? That might be one of the most difficult things that I've had to try to kind of, you know, figure out on my own because everyone is different. A lot of people respond to different type of stimuli, right? Some people like it when you get on their butts and kind of say, hey guys, let's go, let's move this, you know, and other guys are, you know, they kind of shy away from that kind of aggressiveness. So it's definitely a balancing act. As far as my role as a consultant, like I said, I've been doing this for, I guess, 13 years now, going on 14 years as a consultant. And I've primarily always worked with, you know, completions operations, workover, in that, you know, followed in after that. But started off, you know, in frac at Halliburton in 2006. So I graduated from Texas A&M University. I have a degree in animal science. I do not have an engineering degree, but I like to say that I still work with animals every day. They just have 2 legs instead of 4. But anyways, on the flip side of that, you know, started off and, you know, what was I going to do? Well, I didn't want to be a vet after I kind of had already gotten into the program. I knew another 4 years of education and 4 different anatomies was going to be something I wasn't really interested in. And furthermore, I started looking at the economics of being a vet and kind of like running your own business, you know, like a medical doctor, you know, he gets out of school and he's making, you know, 6 figures. And where a vet is, well, you know, what kind of vet are you, you know, and who you working for, you know? Growing up on a farm, you know, I was used to being dirty and being around large equipment and working in the heat, working in the cold, and working in environments that were, I don't know, strenuous to say the least. So I didn't really know where I was going to go, but I kind of thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And I started looking into that in my senior year in college. And, you know, I actually joined the Pre-Law Society at Texas A&M University and took some LSAT practice tests and did pretty good and went down to South Texas Law in Houston and kind of looked at that place, and they were kind of stoked about it. But, you know, how was I going to get there? You know, the path I thought was to be, well, I'll go to work for a corporation, and then, you know, that can help me kind of understand how they work, get a better, get some field experience with, corporations. Contracts and mediation was what I was kind of looking into as far as law. And so this seemed like a good fit. Well, my mother-in-law had kind of gotten engaged and moved up to East Texas, and was kind of following her around. My mother-in-law called me and said, "Hey, Halliburton's hiring." I was like, "Well, I didn't know what Halliburton did, but I knew they were a big company." I did a quick little Google search, and I thought, well, all right, this is a big corporation. They've got lots of dollars moving through them, so let's try this out. So I show up with a suit and a resume and to the Texas Workforce Center over here, and they're hiring, obviously service personnel. And that's the first time I heard overqualified. And
Wow.
it kind of shocked me because I was like, well, I'm here to do whatever, and the guy's like, well, we're hiring kind of operators. And I'm like, okay, I can operate stuff. Yeah. And they're like, well, you're probably a little overqualified for this. You got a degree. I said, engineering department is hiring, and they only require a Bachelor of Science, which is what I had. So I think it was like 2 days later, I got a phone call from the engineering manager, Kevin Kimball, out of Kilgore, Texas, which was an Aggie, and the network is strong. And I showed up there and did an interview with him, and Kyle Yannick, which is the district engineer there at the time, was also in that interview process, and they were both Aggies. And so we kind of had that connection right off the bat, being from the same university and whatnot. And, so he offered me an opportunity, and I took it. And, the path was, well, you're going to go to engineering school. That's in South Texas. You're going to be down there for 6 or 7 months, and you'll be, pretty much working every day. So much so that I actually had to reschedule my wedding.
Wow, I'm sure your wife loved that.
I couldn't get time off. She wanted a spring wedding, and we ended up having one in July. So that tells you anything. But the training course for Halliburton was extremely strenuous at that time. The industry at that time really wasn't to the point where we're in the shale revolution just yet. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty steady, but it wasn't really busy. A lot of vertical completions, sandstones, a lot of different chemicals and fluid systems that we pumped every day. So I was fortunate enough to come into the time where there was that diversification in the stimulation process, which really helped me, always stay on my toes, and I had to learn a lot of stuff, right? Furthermore, the engineering program for Halliburton was, when I say strenuous, I mean, we were given several tests. If you failed the test, you retook it till you passed it. The class did not wait on you. They kept moving. If you failed 3 tests in 6 or 7 months, you're gone. Wow. And we actually saw, I was in school with, petroleum engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. There was a meteorologist guy in there, a mathematician, a very diverse group of college kids. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm in over my head here. I may be, I don't know what these guys know. Right. But I do know how to work hard and study, right? And since I'm intelligent as far as focused, I can make sure that, I may not get it as quickly, but I will get there, right? And that's really what the goal is not to, you don't have to absorb it on the first run, but you do need to keep up with the pace, right? So as opposed to the other guys, some of the petroleum engineers, for instance, they kind of had already, this is like a review for them. Well, this was the first time for me to see this stuff. And so, they would go out and party, and I would go back and study. And a couple months later, some of those guys would go home. So, yeah, the testing was pretty strenuous, but was able to overcome that and then go back to Kilgore where the training continued. Most of the breakout programs for engineering at that time was about a year, a year of training. And so I got assigned a mentor. Bobby Morales was my mentor. He was also an Aggie, so that was cool. But Bobby was pretty firm and pretty cool about, how he wanted to make sure that I understood things and gave me tasks every day when I followed him around and had to come back and have solutions to those tasks, right? And anyways, there was also 4 live fire presentations that we had to go through. And those basically entailed like equipment, engineering responsibilities. You had to prove why you would want to stimulate a well to begin with. Like, why is this a good engineering decision? Both economically and, from a formation standpoint. And so in those live fires, anybody that was on the yard that day could show up and be in your presentation. And after you got done, the goal of the crowd was to stump you, to really test your knowledge. Wow. And so that was very interesting, very fun to do, and extremely stressful. I can't tell you how much stress I had. because, you want to do good. And furthermore, you don't want to be made to look foolish. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So definitely a challenge there, but was able to overcome that. And then, of course, getting back to where we are now, highs and lows of the oil field, right? So hired on in Halliburton 2006. Sometime in July of 2009, I had already left engineering. I had gone into an account rep position that 25 applicants had applied for, and then I was able to get. So I felt like I was really, moving up the ladder inside the corporation. I still had those aspirations of maybe going back and doing law at some time, but was really enjoying the path, And of course, got a call in. I was basically selling cement primarily, but any service that Halliburton had as an account rep, field sales guy, I could get lined out and be a part of. And got called into the office. Of course, I always went to the office on Mondays and did my reports of kind of like what I had seen, who I'd talked to, and kind of what the drilling activity was. That was part of our role as sales guys to kind of keep up with the trends that were happening out there, who was going to get busy, who wasn't, and kind of share that information with upper management and sales so they could make sure they had the equipment if necessary. And anyhow, my boss, Mike, called me, and I think Mike Stewart was his name, and he said, "Hey, Kent, when you get a chance, come into my office." Well, he never called me. I mean, like I talked to that guy on Monday, and that was it. The rest of the time, I was free to kind of make my own work plan. Me and another guy kind of swapped off weekends, so he'd work one weekend and be on call, and I'd be off, and it was one of those kind of gigs. So it was a lot better quality of life for my family and I, but still kind of managing your own business. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Well, Mike called me in, and I said, "Well, let me finish this report, Mike," which I always did, and he let me finish that report, which I thought was nice. And then I rolled up in there, and of course, HR department's sitting in there in his office, and I'm like, "What's going on?"
Right.
I'm like, "Well, terminating your position due to economic downturn." I was like, "Well, that sucks. I guess I'm going back to engineering." No. I was like, "Well, where am I going?" I'm like, "You don't work here anymore." And I'm like, "Yeah, but where do I go?"
Right.
So that was fun. That was my first experience with a layoff, and that was that was another good life lesson. You know what I mean? To be able to kind of comprehend that you can still lose the game and do everything right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was something that was definitely hard to consume. At the time, my wife was 7 weeks pregnant with our first child, and we had a house, we had a mortgage. I mean, I turned off the lights. I ate ramen noodles. I had one cell phone. And I looked for jobs pretty much all day long. I got a little severance package from Halliburton, which was nice. But the sad thing about that was about 2 or 3 months before that happened, a guy that worked at Strategy and Consulting actually asked me if I'd be interested in consulting. And I didn't even entertain the idea. I turned it down because I was like, I'm getting that gold watch from Mr. Earl P. I mean, I had taken the red pill and I was in the matrix and I could not see the outside.
Sure.
Couldn't even comprehend it. So that was a definite challenge to overcome. But for the next 7 or 8 months, I looked for a job. And yes, I could have moved to other places, but with my wife having a job and having a pretty good income for a woman, we decided to try to make this last out here in East Texas, plus the benefits of being next to her family and whatnot. So I was lucky enough after so many months to find an opportunity with the Otex Pumping. They were primarily a cement company that was working for Chesapeake at the time. And, I went into sales engineering for them. I was doing cement slurry sales, and I still had my customer base from Halliburton, so I had those contacts. And I reached out to those guys, and man, I wasn't in control of pricing. So I was able to get the bids, but I mean, we came out high bid on every one of them I did. And it was pretty sad. And I remember calling Doug Rather. He was, I think, the VP or owner of Otex Pumping out of Oklahoma City. He's the guy that hired me. And I told him, I was like, Doug, we can't compete in this market with this pricing. And, they had some steady work with Chesapeake doing surface and some intermediates, but they wanted that long string, revenue. And it was impossible to break down the barriers with the pricing and where it was set. So Doug was kind of like, well, just kind of hang out, help support, our Chesapeake account there. And then, something else will come along. We'll talk about the pricing later. Well, I think it was only like 3 or 4 months, and all of a sudden I get another phone call. Hey, we're done here. And I'm like, what's going on? Yeah, we're downsizing, so you're laid off. Well, my first child was 7 days, something about 7. She was 7 days old when that happened. So that was my second layoff. And then it was like, well, no time to to go and look for a horizontal move. We're going to just go make a move. So I called a guy out of Liberty Pressure Pumping out of Longview, Texas. This is not the Liberty that you know now, but the original. And I just said, hey, I need a job. I knew one of the district engineers over there. I said, hire me on, and they hired me as a hand. So I went on as a frac hand, and it was the best job I ever had in the oil field. Right. I had no idea what stage we were on. I didn't know what top pressure was. I didn't know any of the chemicals that were required for the job. I had no grasp of the amount of sand or proppant that needed to be placed in formation prior to each stage, nor the water or anything else. It was great. In fact, the hands liked me so much that they decided to make me pick up trash every day. And it was the best job. It was like being reverse Santa Claus. You know what I mean? I would walk around with a trash bag and look at people drinking water bottles and just stare at them. Are you done with that? So that was fun, But the reality of it was, that group of guys that I was working with, they didn't really see me as an asset. They saw me kind of as a threat. And you see that a lot. You see that a lot in industry when you run into somebody and you're working and they know more than you do. Don't be threatened by that person.
Right.
Be humble that God has put somebody in front of you that can help you.
Right.
Help your understanding, help your comprehension, help your, the way you do things, change your attitude.
But
right?
like you said, it's full of alphas, and alphas don't like to admit that they're wrong. Alphas are very difficult to be humble and very difficult. Well, sometimes it's not difficult to give respect to someone that commands respect, right? You walk into a room, Kent, and I know that when you walk into a room today, everyone knows you're the star of the show. When you walk in the room, everyone knows that. But how do you get like you said, it's difficult. How do you get some of these alphas to actually understand that there's a world of resources and help if they're willing to accept it?
I think what happens is it comes to performance, but the problem is that like that first team on Liberty, they didn't want to give me the opportunity to help better them. You know what I mean? Instead of being like, oh yeah, we never even looked at that. It was more of, shut up, you're new here, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And furthermore, because they didn't really know my background, it was like, who's this kid? College kid ain't working nothing. You know what I mean? Kind of that attitude. Well, like I said, I'd already been up at the top and down to the bottom again. And so anyways, I was like, guys, it's not a big deal. I'm going to help you all best I can. So I picked up all the trash as instructed, and I was very positive about it. And I remember one of the first things that and this is important too, when you talk about trying to make that jump from, the service side over to the consulting side or any type of leadership role. I remember one of the supervisors there, they had the worst safety meetings that I had ever heard in my life. They were very depressing. It was very kind of, guys not really paying attention, not really involved. This job was pretty repetitive as far as its design. But regardless, in an industry that every day could be your last, the attention that you need to give this job is more than you can provide, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. You're lucky.
And back then, of course, this is when the shale revolution kind of kicked off. We were asking the equipment to do things that it had never been designed to do in a volume that it was not really able to sustain over long periods of time. Goat heads were still a thing, 3-inch iron being run up 90 barrels a minute, a lot of vibration, a lot of harmonics, and not a lot of understanding of harmonics. Frictions were new as far as, these type of frictions. We weren't dealing with just vertical frictions. We were dealing with a shale. I mean, by definition, it is a barrier rock, one that they believe actually creates oil. And, so how did we go about stimulating it? Well, let's just stimulate it like we've done all the old ones and see what happens, And you've seen through, the last 10 or 15 years, I guess, how the industry has really changed as far as its attack towards completing and bringing on shell plays. But like I said, back to the safety meeting thing, it was extremely dull. And I remember, kind of like if you've ever played in sports, that initial conversation that you have with your team before you enter the field sets the tone. You know what
Correct.
I mean? I had great coaches in high school, and I played basketball my freshman year in college for 1 year, and even though it may not seem it, I used to be able to quite move. But anyhow, that whole pep talk was important.
Right.
And I think it really kind of gets your mind where it needs to be to understand what is the task that not just you're going to encounter, but us as a goal, as a team, is going to encounter. So, I always thought, man, that's just, you guys are really doing this thing a disservice. So I remember asking the supervisor, I'm a green hat. I said, hey, man, Kay was his name. I said, Kay, do you mind if I give the safety meeting? He's like, why you want to do that? I was like, I don't know. Just want to see if I can spice it up a little bit. He's like, sure, go ahead and make an idiot out of yourself.
Yeah.
I'd been giving safety meetings for quite a while at that point. And once again, my ability to speak in front of people came from a trained practice, right? So in high school, I started officiating sports games.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that from pretty much 18 all the way to 26 years old.
Wow.
So if you've ever been in a high school basketball game, a high school volleyball game, varsity, JV, middle school, I did it all, right? That's how I made my money in college, right?
Oh,
And there are some people that literally do that for a living to this day.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, you can make. I would make somewhere around $200 in about, I don't know, hour and a half.
That's actually pretty good. And actually,
And for a college kid, that was awesome. Plus, I got to watch a game.
Right.
But to put it more into context, if you've ever been one of those fans that's yelled at an official, that was me.
That was you.
So I was okay with being ridiculed, because really
Right.
all I had, what it taught me was, make the decision based off of what you saw.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't see it, well, you didn't see it. You can't fabricate it. Even if
Right.
50 other people saw it, if you didn't see it, you can't ethically make a decision on it, right?
Right.
So I had that kind of background. So speaking in front of 15, 20, 30 guys wasn't nothing to me. I would speak in front of crowds of 500 and 1,000,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean, at those games. And, high school sports in Texas is a pretty big deal, no matter what the game is, right?
That's right.
So anyways, started doing the safety meetings, and, the guys could really, hey, here's what we're going to be doing today. Here's what we're coming on with. We're going to break down, roll it over, make sure we're moving fluid, start our operation. I want to make sure that we're staying under this top pressure throughout the job, watching our backside intermediates, and kind of just playing through it. Like I said, I've been an engineer. I've been trained to do this. And Halliburton at the time, engineering was equal to supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
We were the technical aspect, and we dealt with the customers. And then you had the supervisors, which was over the mechanical side of things, and the crew. But they were two equals. There was not one over the other. And without one, the other one would not be able to operate, right?
Right.
So started doing that. But, you started to – I remember at that exact moment, there was a change in that crew. Those guys that had never really heard me talk had the opportunity to hear and say, you know what? I think Kent knows exactly what's going on out here. In fact, I think he might actually know more than the supervisor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I did that for a little bit. I was picking up trash and having a good time, not really paying attention to anything. And then after that, they were like, hey, we need you to unload sand at nighttime. We were not fracking 24 hours a day back then. We were afraid of the dark or something. So I would actually, sleep all day, come out there, unload trucks for like 2 or 3 hours into the right bins, because that took some IQ points to be able to get that correct.
Right.
And then I mastered Tiger Woods golf on the iPhone.
There you go.
Now I would set booby traps for the supervisors I didn't like. Anyways, but yeah, after that they needed a fluid tech, so I already knew their fluid systems, and taught the next guy for 2 weeks, and then they needed an engineer. So now I'm sitting in the data van with a customer across from the guy that, thought I was useless and wanted to pick up trash, right? Which, hey, whatever, And I remember Kay asking me one time, he said, Kent, why are you so happy? I said, you know what the difference between me and you is, buddy? He said, what's that? I said, this is your finish line. I said, I'm just passing through. I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to keep moving. But this is where you stop. And that's the difference between me and you. That's why I'm happy, and you seem to be sad.
That's brilliant. What a brilliant
Yeah.
observation. How did he take that?
Well, Kay kind of laughed about it because, once again, in his view, he could just see what was in front of him, not was down the road.
Right.
And a lot of that, like I said, I think that's another big point is where is your focus? Humanity likes to see what's right here,
Mm-hmm.
because this is the clearest thing to see. But if you're not looking down the road 5 years, you're lost.
Right.
One of the questions I love to ask young men when I get introduced to them is, "Hey, where are you going to be in 5 years?" No, I don't know. I was like, well, how do you get somewhere if you don't know where you're going?
Right.
I mean, you don't have to have an exact pinpoint, but you need a direction, north, south. How you get there. Well, sometimes you're heading north. You may have to go south to get back to go north.
Right.
You know what I mean? But at least you have that focus of where you want to be. And then in 5 years, you reset. You do that again. Where am I going to be in the next 5 years?
Right.
And I've been living my life like that for quite a while. And, I don't always get to where I thought I was going to be, but I'm definitely not where I was.
Right. Right. I do the same thing when I speak with operators, but I do the same thing. I ask them the 5-year question, but I start from the other direction. I say, where were you 5 years ago? And then they have to think. I'm like, can you think back 5 Christmases? Because it's easy, right? Can you yeah. I remember the 5th Christmas. Yeah, I was at this house with these people. Da, da, da. I'm like, okay. Did you imagine yourself here today on that Christmas? And they're like, no, I never pictured it. And I'm like, the wind just blew you in. I said, and if you're not careful, the wind's going to blow you out unless you decide what you want to do. So yeah.
I think that God opens windows for you. You know what I mean? He closes doors and opens windows. Sometimes you got to crawl through a window. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you got to be sensitive enough to understand that he's giving you the signals and the opportunities and the messages all the time.
Yeah, he's putting speed bumps in front of you all the time to kind of take you where you need to be. If you choose to just not see them and just fly over them, well, that's your choice. That's the one thing that we always have is free will. But go ahead.
Go. No, you go.
Back to the story. So I get back in the data van. Well, now Kay can kind of see that not only am I really knowledgeable about what's going on upstairs as far as the surface equipment, but I'm also extremely knowledgeable about what's going on downhole. And I've never been downhole. But, Halliburton taught me the theories and the math behind stimulation and completion processes. And, math is real science. 2 + 2 always equals 4. It never equals 6 or 8 or 85 or whatever else you want it to. Preference doesn't play into math. And that's why I think that might be the true science that's left in this crazy world that we're living in today. But, just these simple theories about how, treating pressure reacts and chemicals react and, the frictions that you encounter in a wellbore and into the formation. These are all things that are, can be proven. And of course, having seen so many frac jobs, I'd already proven it. You know what I mean? And once again, science is something that you can continue to reiterate. You can, I can prove it here, I can prove it here, I can prove it here, I can prove it here. It's a fact, right? So I got in there, but I got in front of Kay, and he kind of realized that, hey, this guy can frac, and by that I mean that the consultants that we had, they were obviously knowledgeable guys. They didn't have some of the backgrounds that I had, right? And my goal out there was to make sure that we continued to pump. So if there was a situation that I saw occurring, that the customer didn't see or was busy doing something else, I would obviously inform him of what was going on and then make that decision or help, we would make that decision together. But there's always changes that need to be made inside of the stimulation process. It's not cookie cutter. Now, engineering would love that, but there's that 15% failure, I believe, that is out there continuously. 85% of the time, if you've got a good engineering design as far as a stimulation treatment, it's going to place 85% of the time, right? The consultants and everybody else are there for the 15% of the time, where you run into unconformity in the rock or some other type of, maybe even just something as simple as a surface failure occurs, right? What's the best plan of action? You can't always just shut down and make coffee. And I'll bring that up later, but I heard that this year and I kind of laughed about it. But, stimulation is nothing like drilling. I want to make sure that's clear.
We're not what?
No, we're not part of the drilling department. Completions is its own animal, its own species, right?
Explain that for
Uh,
people who, I mean, you know that this industry is so huge that you can be an absolute expert in what you do and still not have any clue. So could you give us like a quick definition of what completions is relative to drilling?
so if you think about it in layman's terms, everybody knows what a tree looks like, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so everybody knows that most trees have what's called a tap root.
Hmm.
Okay, and that's the first root that kind of kicks off the seed and gets down there, and it's the deepest, right? The taproot itself does not absorb any water or nutrients to the tree. It
Hmm.
is simply a conduit or a drill pipe that makes its way down to the nutrients and then stops. At that point, feeder roots come off the outside of the taproot, go to the edge of the tree where the drip line is, and that is how the nutrients and water is absorbed through the feeder roots into the smaller feeder roots into the taproot, and then up to the tree where you can see the tree growing and green. Right when drilling is completed, all you have is a taproot. So completions, actually, if you can imagine it, now there's just this root, right? Completions comes in and creates these taproots, these feeder roots that come off of it,
Mm.
right? And that's what actually gives the hydrocarbons a flow path to be able to make it to the wellbore, at which point, hopefully, there's enough pore pressure that it will naturally flow to the path of least resistance, which is the top of the wellhead, where we can harvest that hydrocarbon, sell it, refine it, and make a lot of money,
Hmm. And a lot of
right? So
products.
a lot of products, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the difference, especially in the shale plays. Now, if you get offshore and you get into lithologies that are more permeable, right? When you have porosity and permeability, right? What are these two things? Well, porosity is a porous space inside something, right? Physics says that two types of matter cannot occupy the same place at the same time. I can't sit in your chair with you sitting in it in the exact same place. It's going to get weird, right? So we know that oil and gas is in this rock, in the shale, because they can't be in the same place at the same time. The difference between the shales and the conventional plays, which primarily what you find offshore, you find in Saudi Arabia, you find in the conventional vertical completions that we used to do, is that not only did you have porosity where the oil was, but you also had permeability, which is the ability of these two porous spaces to communicate to each other, right? There's a flow path or a highway between them where they can come over here and then go over there, right?
Hmm.
Shale plays, by definition, have extremely low permeability. We actually measure permeability in Darcy's, the scientist. I can't remember his first name, but Mr. Darcy kind of discovered and quantified this theory of permeability through solids, right?
Hmm.
And kind of like a sponge. A sponge is porous and permeable. You hold the
Right.
sponge underwater, and the water hauls butt right through it, right? Well, what about a brick? Is a brick permeable?
It is permeable.
Yeah, it's a slower process, but
Yeah.
there's still a permeability factor through that brick.
Hmm.
If you put that brick in water, sooner or later that water will migrate through that brick, right? And that's
Absolutely.
giving you a description of the permeability of that matter, right? So, like I said, traditional formations drill a hole, right? Case it. That isolates the zones, the ones that you like and the ones that you don't. Poke a hole in it or perforate it. Back up. There's enough pore pressure there, right? There's enough pressure in the formation to force that fluid with a permeability into the wellbore and up to where you can make money with it. So, like I said before, when I started in 2006, it wasn't called frac.
Hmm.
It was called production enhancement.
Hmm.
What does that mean? Well, that means that we had production. Now we're going to enhance it, right? Versus the shales today, there is no production without frac, without
Hmm.
fracture. And let's get something straight as well. If you see somebody that puts a K in frac, they don't know what they're talking
Yeah, I know
about.
that's
Okay,
right.
there's no K in fracture. Okay, it's just FRAC.
That's it.
Let's get that cleared up. That really irritates me. I'm glad we got that cleared up.
Yeah, that bugs me too. Yeah.
Anyways, so without that completion process or hydraulically fracturing the rock, we cannot make these formations economical. And that's the biggest thing to understand as well, is that what trumps engineering 9 times out of 10. I have the best car that's ever been designed in the history of the world. It never breaks. It never needs fuel. It never stops. The tires never wear out. The plastic never scratches. It's the best car ever. Oh my gosh, how much is that? $2 trillion.
Yeah.
Okay, well, guess what?
Guess
Great design. No one's going to buy it. We're not making it. 10-4, right? We're not going to make it, right? So economics trumps engineering 9 times out of 10.
Absolutely.
So the big goal here, and like I said, when I see people on location, what are we here for? We're here to make oil and keep people safe. No, we're not. We're here for money.
Right.
We're here for money. And let's get that clear. That's why we keep people safe. Because hurting people costs money.
That's right.
That's why we care about our time, because time costs money.
That's right.
Right? But if we don't make any money out here, we don't have a purpose out here.
There is no purpose.
Our purpose is to make revenue. And we do that by completing this well, bringing it online, and getting that product to service so we can take it to the customers that need it so badly. But that's something that a lot of people don't understand. It's like, well, once again, your focus is right here. Back up and look at the big picture. And once you get the bigger picture, you can really start to tell, hey, there's a lot of shortcuts in here. I don't have to go this way. I can go this way. I can go that way. I can mix it around. But yeah, so, that's one of the bigger things that people really struggle with is, why are we here, right? Back to your original question on consulting, I was almost to the end of it. I'm sorry I got it out so long. But look, I had that relationship with those customers. Okay. And then their boss, Mr. Benny Wallace, Chesapeake Energy at the time, superintendent, West Side, he came out and he saw that interaction between me and those guys. It got to the point where Benny was calling me. And I remember thinking, why is he calling me? He should be calling the consultants. And, he had his reasons, and I didn't question him. But maybe he knew that maybe their strong points weren't where they needed to be, or maybe they were busy doing something else, or maybe just wanted a different idea on what was going on in the situation. But I kind of developed that relationship with him. And then I remember quite distinctly 60 Minutes, the TV show, came to our location. Chesapeake, being kind of the wildcatter of the shale revolution, was going to have a 60 Minutes presentation performed on them, and Mr. Aubrey McClendon, the CEO of Chesapeake at the time, was going to be kind of giving this meeting with Barbara Walters. So that video crew came out to our location. It was a new location. We had just rigged up. It was the biggest circus I'd ever seen in my life. They had roustabouts with rakes out on location, raking location. I was like,
what?
They had fake grass at the entrance. I was like,
what?
And then, of course, we were instructed that me and I think maybe one or two of the other supervisors was to stay there and everybody else was supposed to leave. Right? So 60 Minutes came out. Once again, big to do here. They did their little videos. And I remember seeing Mr. Benny there. And, I had this opportunity. He was there. This was a big moment for Chesapeake and Benny as well. As one of his operations is going to be on, national television. And I went over to Benny. I said, Mr. Benny, I need to know what I need to do to come to work for you. And he said, well, why don't you send me your resume? I said, you'll have it in 3 minutes, sir. And after that, Benny called me, I think, later that afternoon and said, Kent, we're going to bring you on. And that was my introduction to consulting. It was another baptism by fire. The other crews had 2 consultants on each tower. My guy that I was supposed to be working with, he got sick, and he got, I guess, diagnosed with cancer, like same time. And so I went to work, and I didn't have a partner.
Wow.
I didn't have anybody to kind of show me the ropes, but I kind of knew what I was supposed to be doing anyways. So I just treated it like it was my own business. Kind of similar to when I had been account rep. I treated it like it was my money. It was my time. It was my operation. And so in doing so, I did what I thought was right. And I guess it turned out pretty good. Our crew, our team on the Weatherford crew, which was what I was assigned to, they had 4 frac crews that were in operation at that time. And of course, Chesapeake, being competitive, they ranked them. Weatherford was number 3. The Liberty pressure pumping crew that I had just left was number 4. Cud was number 1, and I believe Slumberjay was in there at number 2.
Wow.
And so I got those guys for a quarter. They got to work with me for the third quarter. And in the third quarter, I missed number 1 by 3 fracs.
Oh,
so we got way more efficient. We got way more resilient. Still fracking the Haynesville Shale, which, like, if you're familiar with that, is a dry gas formation. It's very aggressive. Um, it blows things up a lot, you know. It can be a very violent formation. Probably one of the hardest formations to frack, in my opinion. Depending on your style and your rates and where you are and how much pay you have as far as vertical height there. But yeah, just a really tough formation. So had that, we got in there that end of quarter meeting, and I could hear Benny in there chewing the butt of somebody, the team that was in there before us. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, this is going to be bad. And this is consultants. This is the supervisors. This is the FSMs. This is the frac managers, district managers. I mean, this is everybody in there that's working. And we came in and sat down, and he said, well, boys, you almost got number one by three fracs. Good job. You can go. And I remember going, is this a trap? Like, who's going to get up first? He's probably going to shoot that first.
Right.
But yeah, it wasn't a trap. It worked out pretty good. And yeah, we left, and I thought, wow, we really knocked it out of the park there, boys. We're going to have to do it again in the fourth quarter, right? So that was kind of the first tattletale for me, saying that, hey, I could do this. You know what I mean? I could be a consultant. I could be a leader, and, I could bring the technical knowledge to the operation as well as the positive reinforcement, right? I mean, because when it gets down to it, regardless of how technical or expert you might be in different scenarios, if you can't get men to get behind you, if you can't inspire positive thought processes in the groups around you and your team, you're not going to be successful. Right. And that doesn't mean that you have to kiss butt, you know what I mean? But that does mean that you have to challenge people, and you have to also show them that you're willing to go through the dirt with them. You're willing to stay out there in the rain and the mud, lend them a hand if necessary. That was something that was really hard for me to kind of overcome, was this idea that, consultants really aren't supposed to touch things. Mm-hmm. That's something that is frowned upon on our side, because, they're not hiring us. Benny, he helped me, we were sitting there rigging down one day, and Benny came out and he pulled me over. Of course, I was swinging a hammer, I was knocking things out, right, for the guys. He said, what are you doing? So, rigging down, sir. He said, I don't pay you to rig down. I pay you to supervise. But we're getting done. That's not your goal here. That's not your task.
Right. It's not your task.
Right. Because if you're swinging a hammer over here, how are you looking over there? And I'm like, okay, good point.
Fair enough.
So kind of that head on a swivel thing, right?
Right.
Something that I also learned when I was officiating. You can't you can watch the ball, but you got to be watching other things too. Right. Your head's got to be constantly moving, looking for those fouls or other obstructions that might occur out there, right?
But didn't a lot of this, in as much as the way that you are, how much of that came from your growing up? If I remember, you grew up on a farm, and I think that has a lot to do environmentally in terms of resilience, because again, you can plant a crop and it doesn't mean that it's going to fully grow. You can invest everything and it's not going to go the way you wanted it. You're going to spend hours in the rain, hours in the heat, hours outside when you're tired and uncomfortable. So can you explain a little bit about how that made you more ready for the oil field, and also ready to bring that positive attitude, because you knew that it was all about you? Everything rested on your shoulders.
I think it's, adversity is what defines us, right? The best of times is not who you are.
Right.
That doesn't reflect who you are. That's this make-believe person. You really want to see who you are. Take everything you have away, lose your job, get laid off, have your kids and wife leave you, have a loved one or
fire.
Have a friend die.
Yep.
That shouldn't have died. And that's who you are. That's who defines your character, how you define your character. I always say to the guys, we're a team. We succeed together or we fail together. And I said, we are all going to fall. I expect you to fail. It's how you stand up that defines who you are. We all fall.
Right.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing is that when you have a leader that tells you that, it says, hey, I expect you to fail. Because if you're not willing to fail, that means you're not willing to try.
That means
If
you're
you're
not
not willing to
trying.
try, that
Exactly.
means you're not going to ever succeed.
Right.
So I expect you to fail because why? Because, well, you've never done this before. How could you be successful right off the bat? The first time you tried to take a step on this planet as a human being, you fail. You fail a lot. And now you don't even think about it. Taking a step is like breathing, right? So it just goes to show you and reinforces the fact that, success comes from failure.
Mm-hmm.
And without failure, you can't be successful. You
Correct.
can't be great at something. There are very few people on this earth that have God given talent to just be awesome at everything they do, right? And that's their blessings, and we shouldn't hate them for it. In fact, we should inspire to figure out how they got there so quickly, right? But yeah, I mean, failure is part of it. And I think when the guys hear that, it's not one of these, hey, you can be an evil dictator on location as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You can demand and you can yell and you can scream, and you'll be on top for a little bit. Like all dictators are, they're in power for a little bit, but sooner or later, the screaming, the yelling, the backstabbing, it kind of gets old, and all of a sudden you're looking up and there's 100 senators around you with knives, and then
Right.
Brutus shows up. You too, Brute, right?
Right.
So you can't be Caesar, right? I mean, you can't be like that. You definitely have to be on their level, and you also, I think, the biggest thing is that what does failure mean? Well, as a professional versus as a novice, okay? Professionals make mistakes just like novices do. The only difference is the professional owns that mistake, right? Accountability is a huge part of being a professional. And then there's a second step after that. Yeah, I did that, and this is how I'm never going to do that again.
Right.
If you're able to say that to the person that you report to, there's no other conversation to have. Because a lot of the conversations that I find myself in are, let's see who wants to be accountable today. I'll give you a classic example. The other day I was on a frac job, and I think it was the blender ran out of fuel. And of course, this kind of stopped the job and made us all look like idiots. And my comment to the frac company is that what happened? Well, fuelers ran us out of fuel. I said, who owns the equipment? Who owns the equipment? Is it your blender or is it the fueler's blender? I said, if I gave you a car and told you to drive 1,000 miles and you got in the driver's seat, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to check fuel gauge? You're going to check tires? Are you going to pre-trip your equipment? Because if you don't, you're going to run out of fuel. And said, once again, I don't care whose fault it is. Who could have stopped it? Anybody. Right. Anybody walking past that piece of equipment could have checked that fuel gauge and said, hey, we got a problem. Right? But if you're in the mindset that it's not your job, well, guess what? Your job got screwed up by somebody else's. So wouldn't it have been great if you would have been watching him and he'd have been watching you, and then we wouldn't have had to sleep with our heads in the mud for us? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I mean, that's the problem. It's your equipment. Own it. Right. It's your equipment. Yes, the fuelers are fueling equipment. They're also fueling everything else on location. Yeah, there's 2 of them and 25 of y'all.
Right.
So, yeah, we can pin it on the fuelers. But what we're going to do, we're going to run him off, get another guy, do the same thing over and over again? Right. Or are we going to change the way we work and start thinking, you know what? Blender tender, right? That means you tin the blender, right? That means check your equipment, right? Sand guy, do we have proppant, or is there just make believe wishes in that can right there? I mean, everybody is checking their equipment. I mean, when you walk past a fire extinguisher, you look at it. Why? Well, I'm not on fire. Why do I need a fire extinguisher? Because in 5 seconds, you're going to need that fire extinguisher.
That's right.
Right? Why aren't you doing that? This is the accountability that I'm talking about and that I demand from my crews, right? If you're not the kind of guy that's going to give 2 seconds to check a fuel gauge, I don't have purpose for you, man. I don't have purpose for you. You don't belong out here. You're not on board with what we want to do as a group out here. Right. And it's a struggle for people because they're like, well, I'm not being paid to do that. Yeah, but this is more than just a paycheck, right? This is your integrity. Now, I always say it takes 25 years to make a man and about half a second to destroy one. And where do I get those numbers? I can actually prove that. And I've got facts to back that up. So when you turned 16, you could drive a car. When you turned 18, what could you do?
Buy tobacco. No,
Yeah.
wait. Buy tobacco.
Okay, that's fine. But you knew you were an adult, right?
Right.
Allegedly. Okay, and then you turned
Join the
21.
military.
What could you do? You could buy a beer. What happened when you turned 25? Do you remember?
Not much.
Your car insurance dropped. You know why it did
That's
that?
true.
It did that because statistically your brain has matured to a point where you realize that you can die. Why is that important? Well, once again, you realize that you can be destroyed in a second. So you change the way you live. You change the way you drive. You wear your seatbelt. You start driving more defensively. This is something that insurance companies statistically look at. This is how they make their money,
Right.
right? So they're looking at every male in the United States of America, and at 25, they become better drivers. So, let's face it, what creates a man? Well, understanding that your time here is short and that your goals and the things you need to do are great. You got a lot of stuff to do. You ain't got very much time to do it, right? So you start to see that shift in the mental focus of men when they become 25. Some are a little slower than others, but the point is that you'll get there where you start realizing that, you're not here for you. You're here for somebody else, I think one of the biggest things that we're running into a problem in this country right now is that, nobody knows what their purpose is, right? And I can tell you that, men are all soldiers, and without a mission, we become mercenaries. You know what I mean? We do things for money that we would never even imagine for doing because we don't have a mission, right? But once you discover your mission, then you can start accomplishing it, right? And, every man is here for a reason. It's to provide, protect, and die if necessary, right? And I think culturally we're getting away from that. Women are told that you can do all this stuff by yourself. It's not your purpose. Your purpose is to nurture, produce babies, and, love. And you keep those focuses right in front of you. They're easy to attain. And the questions that so many people have these days about, what am I going to do? How am I going to be successful? You are successful. You have provided, protected, and defended. I mean, that is success. It's not a dollar amount. It's not a house amount. And the funny thing is that when you get all those things lined out, the other dominoes start falling too.
That's it, exactly.
The financial success comes because now you're being responsible. Now you're not going out wasting your paycheck doing something fun just for you because you got to feed that kid and that woman at the house, right? And so everything else starts to kind of line out. It really does. And, it comes from both sides. When the female does the same thing, all the bounties come with it. You know what I mean? But I think that's another reason why the oil field was so attractive to me. It made so much sense, right? It was like being on the farm. If you don't feed the cows, they'll go crazy, break out of the fence, get hit on a highway, and kill a family of 5. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they're cows. They're stupid. If you feed them, they do exactly what they're told to do, right?
Right.
If you don't nurture them, if you don't provide them the things they need, and also you also have to realize, why am I raising these cows? So I can kill them.
Right.
So we can eat them. You know what I mean? I remember as a kid growing up, we had these pigs. We would raise pigs. We were in FFA, and we had chickens and turkeys and everything else you could imagine. And we would show these animals and we would nurture them. Well, I remember catching those piglets and being like, "Oh, you're going to be my beautiful baby," and raise it up, pet it, love it, right? I remember, and then I remember the day I walked in there with a shiv and slit its throat.
Oh, man.
But that was its purpose, right? It had reached, it had succeeded in its task, and it was time to move on. And really, that animal's life would have only got worse after that point. You know what I'm saying? Because it had already reached its goal. It had reached its purpose, and it was time for a new beginning. You know what I'm saying? So the oil field is a lot like that.
But even in that animal, it nurtured your family. It fed your family. It gave everything in the cycle of advancement, in the cycle of life. There's nothing wrong in that. That's the way it's supposed to go.
And that's one of the things that's also misconstrued about oil. Everybody has this, this negative connotation about hydrocarbons. I mean, let's not forget, without hydrocarbons, there is no middle class. There is no industrial revolution. There
No.
is no, man, I'd like to start at the bottom and end at the top. That doesn't happen without these economical steps, right, that oil has provided. I mean, cold kills more people in the world than any amount of heat ever will.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? You can't run from the cold.
No.
You can cool yourself off. You can jump in water. You can get under a fan, but you can't hide from cold,
No,
right?
that's
And that's
true.
why, the most harshest environments on the face of the earth are not hot. They're
Correct.
cold. In fact, one of the most, you look at the hottest places on the face of the earth, they're usually full of quite a bit of life. I don't know if
Right.
you've
It's
been to the
very,
Amazon.
very overly
I don't know if
populated
you've been to
usually.
the Amazon, but it's pretty hot down there, and hot in a
Right.
sticky kind of way.
Right.
Even the Sahara, it's got
Mhm.
life there as well. It's obviously very designed life, but definitely it's still there.
It's
But
definitely
yeah, the oil industry is just such a great place because, like I said, I came in not knowing anything. I mean, I knew that you put diesel in a tractor and you put gasoline in a car, right? But I didn't have any understanding of the geology of the equipment that's used to kind of work this product and bring it to market. But I was able to grasp it, consume it, and regurgitate. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the things that makes it so appealing. This is one of the few industries in the world that's left today that does not require a piece of paper. It does not require formal education to get you anywhere.
That's
If
right.
that doesn't scream America, I don't know what else does.
Oh
You know
my
what I mean?
brother.
This is it, guys. You can't be a doctor without a piece of paper. You can't be a lawyer without a piece of paper, right? I mean, I guess you could be a YouTube sensation, but who wants to have that on the record? Anyways, long story short, you can come into this industry with grit and the ability to succeed and not not be afraid to fail. And in the end, people will call you boss. And if that's something you aspire to do, it's achievable, right? But the path is undefined. Benny Wallace at Chesapeake gave me that opportunity. The first job is hard to get as a consultant. The second job is even harder. And why is that? Well, because the first job, everybody knew you weren't a consultant, right? The guy that hired you knew you weren't a consultant, right? So he gave you a chance. He put his name on you. The second job, you've been a consultant, but you've only had one customer, right? That's like, I have the world's best cheeseburger, according to who? My one customer. Come buy the world's best cheeseburger. Who said it? How many reviews? I got one.
One. But he
I
really
got
liked
one.
it. He really liked
I got
it.
5 stars. 5 stars. One review. So that is a problem in itself there. And then you have to really, kind of teach yourself to cold call. The account rep thing that I'd been through, and the ability not to be afraid to fail, not be afraid to be told no, or not be afraid to be cussed out over the phone. You're wasting my time. That's part of sales. When you become a consultant, this is an entrepreneurship, right? This is running your own business. There is no severance. There is no workers' comp unless you decide to pay for it. There is nothing. It's just you, right? You've got to manage your money. You've got to manage your family life. You've got to be able to, to be able to walk away from a job. I think the biggest challenge with the consultants is that, I got to have this job. No, you don't. Because here's the deal. Any job that you have to have that you can't walk away from is one you don't need. Okay? As consultants, you are selling your leadership and your integrity every second of every day. I've had operators ask me to do things that I felt was ethically incorrect. And I informed them that I was going to be securing this well site and leaving right after. And, comments are made, well, you'll never work here again. And the response was, well, who said I ever wanted to? If this is how you guys operate, I'm not your man. I don't do things that I know can hurt people just because it's a shortcut or it's a quicker step. Because the reality of it is that, you get away with it 10,000 times, but this industry is also extremely fair. You're only as good as your last job. And if your last job, you killed somebody and you did it right 10,000 times before that, you suck. Okay? And that's what's awesome about it. It's not debatable. You know what I mean?
Right.
There is no, well, what about this? No, you killed somebody. You suck.
Yeah.
You know? And that's something I don't ever want to carry around. My biggest fear is, and I tell the guys, so I'm a big PPE guy, right? Because I've been hit with stuff. I've been hit with 5,000 pounds of 2 inches of water that threw me like a rag doll across location. I'm lucky to be alive. You know what I mean? I'm not going to lie. I've been in places that were there, and then I left, and 10 seconds later, that place no longer existed. And I remember thinking, like, wow, 10 seconds. 10 seconds. And I could go back and track it. And I could actually see it, prove it, and be like, man, why am I still here? You know? And it took me days. I remember the first time that I was around iron that had failed and catastrophically failed. I had gone to the restroom, came back, and I was, once again, we didn't have the kind of concerns that we did around the high pressure iron that we do now. The industry's changed a lot since I started. It was kind of like one of those necessary evils. We understood that we were around pressurized iron. We also understood that it could fail. We understood that statistically there was a low chance of it, but, it was something we kind of dealt with. It was just kind of understood that, you will work around iron in proximity of high pressure. We've changed a lot as an industry since that time and gotten a better awareness of, not really the new hazard. The hazard was always there. It's just that we no longer accept it. We no longer have to accept being around that type of hazard for what? So we could save 5 minutes. It's not worth it. So, the industry has definitely evolved and become better in its aspect of what is an acceptable risk. You know what I mean? And understanding that human life is unreplaceable, where equipment is quite replaceable. So,
I'm sorry. Please continue. I'm sorry.
So one of the biggest things that I run into, my biggest fear is that I'm going to see something. And my biggest thing that I see all the time is guys with their shades or their safety glasses, below their eyes. They'll have them on top of their hard hat, or they'll have them around their neck or whatever. And, I walk past them and I'm like, hey, how you doing? Like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. And I was like, you have got the prettiest eyes I have ever seen. Can I touch them?
Right.
And then they're like, what are you doing? I was like, well, if you had on your safety shades, I couldn't touch your eyes.
Right.
Now, what do you think your next step ought to be?
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you something that actually happened the last 2 days. Cause also I work in the field. I work for a services company, and one of my coworkers had sent a photograph to his supervisor showing what was at the bottom of an ISO. And the ISO was almost empty. Right. But the problem here is there was a couple of diapers inside. Right. And so the message from the manager was like, hey guys, keep the lids closed on the ISOs to keep the contaminants out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Being the smart ass that I am, I looked at that photograph of the bottom of the ISO. I'm like, wait, there's sunlight at the bottom of the ISO. So I zoom in, and there's the photo of the kid who's taking the picture, right? I'm like, that's the kid taking, wait a minute. I zoom it in.
Even more.
Dude, and I got so busted today. I walked in the unit and the dude goes, oh, what's going on, snitch? I'm like, what the hell? Dude.
Oh, yeah.
It was, bro, I zoomed it in. I took a look. I cropped it. I rotated the photo and I sent it to the manager. And I said to the manager, if you're going to gently remind guys to close the lids, you may gently remind them to wear hard hat and glasses and a harness when they're on top of an ISO. Dude, so I got called straight up. I got called snitch straight up today.
Yeah, my first group, the first guys that I worked with back at Liberty Pressure Pumping, that first crew where I picked up trash, they called me Popo. I was a police officer. I remember the first day we went out and rigged up. I mean, I went and rigged up, and I was like, "Wow, you guys are, you got straight chicksons here. You got some problems with this rig up. You know what I'm saying? We can't do this. This isn't really API." And they were like, "Shut up, Han." I said, 10-4, got that, Roger. And so then I got back to the yard, and that district engineer was like, "Hey, what do you think?" I was like, "Well, y'all do things a lot different around here." He's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't know you could S out chicksons, and you didn't have 7 points of swivel and all this other great stuff." And he's like, "What?" And yeah. I got drilled on that one too. Honesty is not always the best decision, I guess. But yeah, regardless, the reality of it is, if you don't want to be accountable for it, don't do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's my message to those guys that would call you a snitch. Well, how can I be a snitch if you're not screwing up?
Right, right. If it wasn't for dickheads like you, there wouldn't be any thievery in this world. To take a quote right
Yeah.
from Full Metal Jacket, right? If you were doing what
Yeah.
you were supposed to be doing, you wouldn't have put me in the position to have to do what I had to do.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, everybody is on that see something, say something.
Everyone is a range officer, like the same way when you go shooting.
Evil wins when good men see bad things and do
Do
nothing.
nothing. That's straight up.
And so we're not gonna promote evil. You know what
No.
I mean? And like I tell the guys, we all get caught up in the moment. Some guys I can't see. Well, then stop your job. Like I'm telling you, you can stop your job. Another good question I always ask people, it's like everybody's got the right to do what out here?
Stop the job.
What do you got the right to do? No, you
Everyone
got
has
stop
the right to
job
stop their
authority.
job.
Okay, stop my job right now.
The job is stopped.
Okay,
Stop
you want me to
stop what
stop my
you're
job?
doing.
Okay. So how do you stop a job?
You call it into the
With authority.
Stop job authority.
With authority. You shut it down with authority. Right?
Well, that's true, right? You can't be like, I think maybe you should.
Can't
No,
be
of course not.
timid. Can't be timid,
No,
right?
on the
Stop
field.
it with authority, because why are we stopping? We're stopping because somebody has the potential or high risk of getting hurt.
Right, like it could be
And if
that
that's
close,
not-
like a parent yelling at a kid, "Hey, drop that, drop it!"
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't
hell
touch
yeah,
that.
dog! You know we do that all the time. We do that all the
Yeah.
time. You know.
If you don't, but see, that doesn't happen. It's like, and then the next question: is it easy to stop a job?
It depends on the character of the person.
It's
and
not
what they
easy.
do.
If it was easy, no one would ever get hurt in the oil field, because there's always one guy that saw that guy right before he did something that ended his life. There's everybody is always seen by somebody else. If it's easy to stop a job, then why don't people do it? Because it takes guts and leadership to stand up when everybody else is going 100 miles an hour and say, tap the brakes.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not easy to stop a job. Last question. Which is the hardest job to stop out here? That'd be your job.
Mm-hmm.
You have to tell me when you need to stop.
Right.
Right? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I'm also not a psychiatrist, even though I dabble a little bit in it. Anyways, long story short, I'm not asking for 110%, because 110% is over 100, which means you're in the red zone, right? I'm not asking you to take your engine to red line. I'm asking to take it to 2,000 or 3,000 RPMs and leave it there for 12 hours and shut it down. And furthermore, if you need to take breaks, take breaks. Because people that are fatigued kill other people. People that are in a hurry kill other people. People that are tired, and got their mind in another place, they kill other people too, right? So since we know what's at risk here, are we going to make the right decisions and be able to stop our jobs? If you're not fit for duty, if your wife ran off, if your grandmother passed away, if your kid's sick, I need to know about it.
Right.
That doesn't mean you have to go home. But just like the guy that is allergic to wasp stings, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got an EpiPen in his bag in case he gets stung. Here's the deal. He doesn't have his bag with him all the time. If he gets stung 200 yards away from that bag and he didn't tell anybody what his condition was, right? His weakness, his need for help, how are we going to help him? He's going to die right there because he didn't want to communicate. I always tell people that, burdens are heavy. But the funny thing about burdens is we all got burdens. Mm-hmm. The strange thing about it is the more people that are under that weight, the lighter it is. So if you've got problems, let me know. I'm here to raise you up. I'm not here for you to raise me up. My job is to make your job better, not the other way around.
That's right.
And I've had crews that show up, we just don't have radios. You guys want to see a magic trick? I need 10 radios or I'm shutting this job down. Okay, I'll see you in 5 minutes.
There you go.
It'll happen. And the reality of it is that I'm in a position to have authority to make those calls as a consultant. But if I don't make those calls, if I see that lack of communication, and let's face it, if we don't communicate, we are going to kill somebody.
That's very true.
Right? It's going to happen. At a minimum, we're going to mess up this job, potentially cause delays, and cost money. But at a maximum, right, we're going to kill somebody because somebody didn't know. what was happening because they had no way of knowing because they didn't have radio communication, right? Hand signals, we don't do that. It's 2024. We've got radios. We can actually hear each other and talk to each other.
Right.
And I've even had to coach people with how do you even talk on a radio? You don't just give a directive and then go do it. You give a directive, you get a copy, and that person repeats what you just said. So you know that they understood what you said. And then you tell them, hey, I'm fixing to go do what I just said I was going to do. Are you ready? And they say, yes, I'm ready. I mean, it's 4 communications in every operation. The initial, the copy, hey, I'm going forward. Yes, go forward. Right? If you don't do that, you're going to kill somebody. It happens every time. You're going to pump against a valve. You know what I mean? In hydraulic horsepower, right? These engines are, 3,000 horsepower, right? 3,000 horsepower, right? They're moving fluid, through 5 inches of stroke, somewhere around about this much, about 7, 8 inches of stroke, right? I mean, literally in a second, you can take 0 to 16.5 like that, right? I've seen it. It's not pretty. Iron will not sustain. You will have shrapnel in the air and the potential for, real bodily harm. So that communication has to be there. And yes, so we're constantly fighting this battle of efficiency and, making sure we're valuing our time, utilizing our time correctly. Plus, we've got to be able to stop, slow down, and say, hey, you know what? Our communication isn't good. Because, people can only communicate so fast, right? Those operators that, as far as production companies, obviously they're the ones footing the bill on everything. But, the ones that are like, hey, we've just really got to have this, that's because you haven't planned your business correctly.
Correct, right.
You haven't managed your finances. You haven't managed your risks. Maybe you need to take that step back, take that 5 minutes and start to realize, what is the cost if we do hurt somebody out here? Because wrongful death suits are a real thing in my industry. It's something I think about constantly because I am accountable and responsible legally for every human being that's on my well site. And because I'm accountable and responsible, I have a say in whether or not they need to be there, right? That's not being mean.
Mm-hmm.
I've had managers show up sometimes, that didn't check in with me. And I don't take kindly to that. I don't take kindly to CEOs that don't check in with me. This is either my site or it's not my site. And if it's my site, it's my castle, you knock on my door, I open the door when I'm ready. I invite you to come in when I'm ready. You're my guest, right? Now, I know you own this operation, but you've given this responsibility to me, and I expect to receive it. And if that's going to be a conflict for us, well, then I'm not your guy. You know what I mean? And like I said, not being able to walk away from jobs, man, I'll tell you, because, your integrity is always going to be challenged. In this industry, there's always going to be somebody that says, man, we ain't got to do that. Ain't nobody looking. We can get away with this. There's a shortcut. And that's fine. But you're going to own that shortcut. And the biggest thing, is like I see a lot of guys coming in that are brand new to this industry. We've had some booms. We got guys that are coming in that didn't grow up on farms and don't realize that, this hand is detachable. You can just,
Right.
cut it off right there.
Right. Yeah. Get degloved.
And so these guys get paired up with other guys. And, these mentors in our industry are supposed to be strong-willed and men of integrity, that not only know the information, but are willing to communicate it. The difference between an expert and a teacher. Both of them know the information, but only one of them can make you understand it, right? And put it in perspective to where your mind can grasp it. And that takes, knowing your audience. Where are you from? I'm from the city. Oh, okay. Where are you from? I'm from the country. Okay. Well, I mean, you kind of have to know where people are coming from so you can relate to them. And, if you don't have a way to find that common ground, it's hard to mentor somebody. But anyways, my big challenge to those mentors all the time is like, look, if you teach this guy a shortcut, what did you teach him? Well, you just taught him the right way to do it. He doesn't know it's a shortcut. He just knows that when I'm supposed to do this, and this is how I was taught to do it. Then he teaches the next guy, and he teaches the next guy. Sooner or later, the dominoes line up long enough that shortcut comes and actually cuts somebody in half, right? And so that's what's at stake every day, especially in the hydraulic pressure pumping industry, is the amount of risk we have. I think drilling, another difference between those two is that these guys are dealing with controlled well bores. They have fluid, they have mud, They have hydrostatic pressure maintaining the formation pressure. They've got casing in between them and zones. Not to say this stuff can't fail, but they've got they've got this safety factor light in. You know what I mean? I was getting back to that comment earlier. You just shut it in and make coffee. Well, in a drilling rig, you can do that. You can shut it in. Everything will go static. In fact, that's the first thing they tell you to do when you get a kick. You know what I mean? Is stop, assess, make a plan, and then act on it. You can't do that in frac. Frac is it's a live process, right? You have created this fracture in the rock. You have moved 2 miles of earth. You've separated it, and you've got a crack going somewhere between 1,000 to 1,200, 1,500 feet away from your wellbore, and you're maintaining this. You're holding. It's like Samson or whatever. You're holding the world above your head. Atlas, I guess, whatever his name is. You're holding this rock up. You can't just drop it and pick it back up again, right? It's a natural phenomenon that's occurring. You cracked open this rock. It's going to try to close. It's going to try to change. If you reduce the rate or reduce the pressure, you're going to change the structure of that fracture, and that could be the difference between you being able to properly place the job and not place the job. And some formations are more forgiving, and some are extremely unforgiving. There's a quote going around in the industry, rate sensitive formations. They like 99.5 barrels a minute. They don't like 100. They don't like that. They won't accept it. Pressure will continue to climb, and when you're looking at these formations, as far as, what is a homogeneous situation? Well, if I'm pumping in as fast as I'm leaking off, my pressure is flat. Right? When I start to exceed that leak off, pressure increases. You're just filling up a cup. If it doesn't have anywhere to go, if there's not a flow in equal a flow out equal to a flow in, pressure is going up. If flow out is greater than flow in, pressure is going down. Right? It's a pretty simple concept when you think about it, but no one's really ever been down, to formation before to actually visually see it. Drilling rig, something's broke. Pull it out, look at it. Oh, we're missing a bit. How do you do that on a frac job?
You don't.
You don't. So it's a difference between, having abstract thought, right? Completions is more of a theory, visualizing those things that you have never touched, right? And basically, how are you working around this? Well, once again, it ties back into that math and the equation of physics, right? If you understand the equations, you can eliminate variables and go, oh, it's that one. Let's do that. You can affect that, right? And it's a trial and error thing, but you can't just shut it in and make coffee. I heard that comment come from an operator this year, and I just remember thinking, you're not talking to me, right? You're talking to some drilling guy, right? Because I can't just shut it in and make coffee. Question in the back, what the hell does that even mean?
Right.
Have you been at the frac job? Like, what? I can't shut it in and make coffee. I may never get this opportunity again.
Right.
This rock has never seen water in 1,000,000+ years. And you think I can just start and stop this process?
Right. Right. To 3 miles below the surface. Right.
She ain't that kind of girl, man. You know what I mean? She can only be a virgin once. I mean, you can't re-virgin it. You know what I mean? Like,
right. That's glorious.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different concept, right? You know what I mean? Like I said, drilling, every other aspect of the oil industry, you can pull it out and you can look at it.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't pull a frac job out and go, oh, we were missing this. That doesn't exist, right? It doesn't exist. And furthermore, how do you prove a frac job? Well, all you're looking at is lines on a chart.
Right.
You got chemical rates, you got flow rates, you got pressures, you got backsides, but all these things can be altered.
That's very true.
I mean, like the software was designed to be manipulated, right? And I always tell the guys when I get in there, I'm like, hey, I just want you to know something. I used to sit in that chair right there. They say the best cops are old thieves.
Right.
I just want to go ahead and warn you guys.
Right.
I have stole a lot of shit.
Right. When I used to train
in the name of the Almighty, I've taken a lot of bad things. I've done a lot of bad things.
I used to train operators. I got into the oil field doing water treatment and chlorine dioxide. That was basically my forte. But I
Man, I
would,
love that stuff.
dude, that stuff is awesome. I love it. And I would train operators. And, part of it, to kind of quote Alan Watts here, right, is that everyone is a scoundrel. The problem is when you try to convince me that you're not a scoundrel, right? Like you just said, right? Like you go into the data van and you're like, you guys aren't gonna fucking pull one over on me because I fucking know what's going on over here, right? So don't try to sell me that you're not a scoundrel, because you are.
Dude, the last company I worked with, we was like 4 or 5 days into the job, and they were still having problems identifying which pressure transducers went where. Pressure transducers went where. I was like, okay, guys, no, look, I'm starting to get embarrassed for you.
I feel bad for you.
I'm getting embarrassed for you. I get like day 1 jitters, but this is day 4. And you're still telling me, why is the backside pressure equal to treating pressure? Either we've got a geyser outside right now. Let me look. Nope, that's not right. That's not right. There's something wrong here, because that pop-off set to 1,500 and we're at 8,000. So no, I don't think that's right. I think this is the wrong number. Yeah. God bless them.
Stuff. That's good stuff. Because I would tell the operators, I'm like, you could futz with the numbers here. You can futz with the numbers there. You can do this to change it, that to change it. And I'm like, I know that because I've done that. But here's the kicker. You can put whatever you want on the paper. That's fine. But here's one thing. The pit's not going to lie. So if I go to the pit and I sample the pit, I said, I know exactly what the fuck you've been doing or not doing. So you can say whatever you want to say, but the pit is not going to lie. So, yeah.
Well, like I said, that's what's beautiful about it, is that you can go back and verify, right?
Right.
And
like
with
you said at the beginning,
you can start to realize that you're fighting a battle you're not going to win. So then you decide, why even fight it? Just be honest,
Just be honest.
I screwed up. This is what I did. This I'm never going to do it again. And I mean, those types of administrative conversations with people that make mistakes, they're like that.
Yes,
they're like, okay,
exactly. It's when someone tries to push it off, when they're like, it wasn't me, I didn't know, it's not my job. As soon as you start that, because what I tell guys is that, when you start talking that kind of shit, it's like rats around a dumpster. Like you're trying to hide behind the dumpster. I said, but you know what my job is to come and kick the dumpster and scatter the rats, because this shit does not fly here. Not with the way I want to run this location. No.
I love taking deoxides and putting them with oxidizers. Those are fun.
Isn't it? Let me
I had a water treatment guy do that behind the frac tanks, like he was off location.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him setting up, and I remember thinking, I'm going to go check on that guy. And I look over, and there's this white puff of smoke. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I run over there, right? And this guy is off location, his brush around him and stuff. He's got like several little fires going everywhere. I'm like, what is going on? I run over there, and he's trying to put out a fire, a chemical fire, I might add. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and as I'm over there, what's going on? He goes, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, there's another bucket on his unit. It blows up right next. I'm like, get out of here, run! So we run off, and I'm like, he's done chemically burned his hand. I'm like, what is going on? Well, he took once again, oxidizer buckets, right? That just had residue in it, and then put chlorine dioxide in it. And it's like, you can't have a scavenger and an oxidizer in the same place, boss. And then he put a lid on it. It made a bomb. I was like, what? I've been doing this for 20 years. I was like, what's that say about your 20 years, Han? Like, dude, you didn't understand. Once again, people don't intentionally do stupid shit, right? They normally do it because they didn't understand. They didn't understand the cost or the risk that was involved, and that's why they decided to do that decision. But cutting a corner. I needed a bucket. Frac had one, so I just took theirs. It was a breaker bucket, an oxidizer. I'll put this deoxide. I'm like,
right.
And for those of you who are watching this, if you get really bored one day, Not on location, allegedly, but get some oxidizer and deoxidizer, put them together and see what happens.
See what
Just,
happens. But don't forget to put the
make sure you
lid
guys
on
are space.
because that's the
Make sure
best
you guys
part.
are space. There's going to be some heat that's really hot.
So save it for a cold winter day when you do that. That's
right.
Oh my
Or when you
gosh,
need to
brother.
burn your house down, something like that.
That's crazy, brother. Let me ask you this, because this is a question I've been meaning to ask you for a while. Tell me a little bit, and I know already I'm opening up Pandora's box here, but what do you like to hunt?
I do.
Do
I
you
enjoy that.
do you bow hunt?
Yes, I do. I'm an archery guy.
Archery guy. Why do you choose archery over classic firearm?
I tell you, I was a kid, and growing up in Central Texas, we had, my grandparents had 289 acres out in Gatesville. Me and my cousin actually own that now, so that's been in our family for I think 4 or 5 generations now. My great grandfather came from Ireland and homesteaded that place. It's on the Leon River, and so it's river bottom country. And river bottom country is kind of like life, it's good and it's bad. It's definitely fertile dirt. But the river gets out. Of course, in doing so, it re-fertilizes everything. It renews everything, but it destroys everything too, right? So it's kind of like a give and take thing. So I started hunting out there, and I remember my grandparents, they shot deer for subsistence. It wasn't really a hunt; it was more of a we're going to eat these things. You know what I mean? Right. Kind of like every other animal on the farm, it had a purpose. The deer, consumed the wheat that they had planted for the cows. And so it's like, well, looks like justification to me. My grandmother had uncles, that were World War II vets, the Greatest Generation guys. And, Uncle Woodrow Parrish was his name. He told me the only types of seasons he knew was salt and pepper. I said, Woods, he shot a deer in July one year. And I remember thinking, it ain't deer season. He goes, only seasons I know is salt and pepper. I said, well, it's your land. I guess you can do what you want to with it, I mean, if you think about it, that's one of the reasons why we love being Americans, because we don't like, the king owning all the deer.
That's right.
And the king's deer, you get killed for killing the king's deer. Well, the king didn't even know this deer existed. It's been on my land since it hit the ground, but I guess we just replaced the king with government. Anyhow, long story short, hunting was part of it. And, having that, it was kind of like becoming a man, if you could go and provide. Can you provide? Can you provide the family with subsistence to eat today? Mm-hmm. That's part about, once again, protect, provide, defend, and die if necessary, right?
Right.
And so being able to provide was something I felt was kind of, part of becoming a man. And I remember it was about 14 or 15, I kind of got involved in hunting. Of course, I had been exposed to it, but never really when I was the trigger man. Mm-hmm. And so I remember going and getting my first deer rifle. I don't know where we went, but my dad was like, hey, pick out whatever gun you want. Me being the ignorant retard that I was, I decided to get a 7 mag, which, is an elk gun for a whitetail. And it, on top of that, it's a synthetic stock. So it kicked like a bay mule. Right. Anyway, but I remember, the good things that came out of that was, Granddaddy and Bruce Jr., my mom's brother, came out. We got on a fence post. He made a little sign. Let's see here if I can find it.
Oh, awesome.
He made this little sign right here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right? So this is a little bit of butcher paper here. Mm-hmm. And Granddaddy got some cans, and he made a circle, and he got another can, made another circle, and put a red dot in the middle. And I remember it was set up kind of like this right here, actually.
Yeah.
And I remember I shot here. There's my first hole, and then he moved the scope and shot here and got the second one, and then third one was bullseye, right? And then I remember Granddaddy, he did a little circle right here. And you see these 2 shots over here to the side? That's where he hit. And I said, well, Granddaddy, you going to make an adjustment? He goes, nah, deer's that big. We're good. Anyways, but,
stuff only your granddad could say. Stuff only your granddad.
That's practical, right? That's being practical, right? I mean, like, you don't have to be perfect to be efficient.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, but I remember shooting my first deer, and I shot 2 deer with a gun. And then my buddy, James Hicks, he's a DPS officer out of Waco. We went to high school together, and he was like, hey, we should get bows. We can hunt another whole month in October. And I was like, wow, that's great. So once again, didn't know anything about archery, but I ended up ordering a bow out of a magazine, and I didn't know what the numbers meant, so I thought, well, the bigger the number, the better it is, right? 31,
Right.
32. That was actually draw length, the distance between here and there. And I didn't know. So I got the first one, I drew it back. I was like, man, this thing's way back here, man. I don't know if this is right or not. But, kind of self-taught myself. I ended up going to a bow shop, getting a little bit better, surrounding myself with experts,
Mhm.
right, on the information that I wanted to have.
Right.
And became pretty proficient in it, and got the right bow, got the bow adjusted and got everything the way it needed to be. And I still remember to this day shooting my first deer with a bow. And a doe and a yearling came in on a feeder. We had a place on the farm that was called the Island, where the river had kind of gone around and it had rechanged its course, but when it would hold water, so it was kind of an island. You couldn't really get to it, but I had a setup in there where I thought the deer were staying. And deer came in, and I remember drawing back. And of course, my deer stand at the time was made out of 2x4s and a 2x6. I laddered up this tree that had a V in it, and I put a 2x6 across it, and I was standing in this V.
Yeah.
No safety harness, kind of like the oil field.
Sure.
We just did shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, anyways, I'm standing there with no harness, 25 feet off the ground, or 20 feet off the ground, and this deer comes in, and I thought, I'm going to shoot the little one because, if I shoot the big one, the little one won't make it. That's how ignorant I was. And I went ahead and shot it. But I remember letting that arrow go. It was an aluminum arrow, silver tip, expandable broadheads. I think it was some kind of feather fletching at the time, And it went into the deer, and the deer kind of ran, jumped, made a great shot. I was only 20-something yards. And the deer ran off and laid down and died. And I remember thinking that was the coolest, most difficult thing I'd ever done in my life.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, I really need to, I love this. Why would I ever shoot a deer with a gun? Again, it's, gun's easy. This is hard. And it's way more rewarding because it is hard.
It's harder. Yeah.
And so I went 19 years without shooting a deer with a gun. And I finally broke my streak in Missouri because I was getting my butt whooped. And I got pissed off and I got weak. And ended up shooting a deer with an AR-15, but that's a different story.
Dang.
Anyways, but yeah, since then I've always been a big archery hunter, and I think another thing that's cool about archery is the release of the arrow is almost it's kind of therapeutic. You know what I mean? Kind of like some guys like to play golf. It's really you against the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in archery, it's kind of the same thing. It's you, the arrow, the bow, and the target, and that ability to calm yourself, kind of see the shot before it happens in your mind and play out those steps that are required to make a good ethical shot is something that even I struggle with even today. You know what I mean? I think it's something that you never really master. You just try to continue to strive to be better at, And I think that's what makes it so appealing. And so much so that, I've got my oldest daughter now. She was actually able to take her first deer at 13 with a bow.
Wow.
Yeah, I got it on video. It's on Twisted Arrow Productions. If you guys get bored, you can check that out.
Absolutely.
I've got a YouTube channel where I've been posting videos, and that was another thing. So to add another hard thing to it, I started videotaping my own hunts too. And sometimes I would have somebody help me, but most times it was just me by myself. So you're running a camera, and then of course one camera turns into like 2 or 3. You just start. It gets a bigger and bigger production each time. Yeah. And I'm trying to put cameras on the ground to get different angles so you can see arrows like going through animals and coming out the other end. And I put them on YouTube just because I like to be able to share them with people. But I've never been monetized or whatever. I don't make any money off of it. Mm-hmm. But I got 4,700 friends that I've never met.
Well, you're going to have a lot more friends after this airs because we're going to put a link to your YouTube channel. We're going to put a link in the description below. So everyone, please check out Kent's channel. Obviously, if you spent a couple of minutes with Ken, you spent a couple of minutes with us, you can tell that Kent, he's really above and beyond the average guy that you're going to meet. So most definitely. Kent, can I invite you to come back on the show so we can talk some more?
Oh, yeah, I'd love that, man. I mean, the topics are endless. We got a lot of stuff to cover and just kind of scraping the ice right here.
That's true. So this is almost like an overture for all of the people who are listening, because I think that Kent is going to be a recurring guest on the show. And, maybe even he and I will talk and we'll do a special series together and we'll drill down on certain topics, because obviously you can tell that Kent is a man who has been around. He takes himself and his work very seriously, and he desperately and deeply cares about himself, his community, his family, and this country. I don't think that you could find a better person to really listen to and get the truth from than from Kent Schiller. So, Ken, thank you so much for being here, brother. We appreciate you tremendously.
That was so nice.
You owe me another 5 for that. Yeah. That cost you another 5.
Roger that. Yeah, it's been a pleasure being here, man. Like I said, I really was kind of caught off guard when you reached out to me and was like, "Hey, man, like kind of what you're doing here." And I got I've got a profile on LinkedIn that I kind of add things on. I found it to be a resourceful site, especially for looking for work sometimes. Yes. So, put things on there when you see them. And once again, if you're raising other people up, you're going up. That's if you're putting other people down, you're going down. It's pretty simple, man. And I think if we can control our focus, right, prioritize our focus as a country, as men, as anybody, and just have that idea of service. I think one of the biggest things that I found most recently, a lot of people are always looking for joy. How do I find joy? How do I fulfill this emptiness in my life? And, I have a relationship with Jesus, and I think that, you don't have to have that. I think it's the best idea, but I'm not going to judge you. But I have discovered that there's some power in those words. And the one thing that I think is most important is if you want to find real joy in this world, you really got to give it to somebody else. I think that if your cup is full, God can't put anything back in it. But if you empty your cup, if you serve somebody else and you raise somebody else up, he finds a way to raise you up too. Right. And I think that's been, my career is a testament to that. Yeah. As I came across people, I could have kept all this information to myself, all this knowledge that I've been able to gather, through the training that I've gone through, and I could keep that all to myself and never give it to anybody. But it's not going to make the industry better. It's not going to make other people better. And it's not going to make the world a better place. So, the real thing we have to do is start raising others up and start giving others joy. And I can tell you the proudest I've ever been, is like, this year with my daughter, with her, shooting 7 times and not connecting 7 times, right? She missed. I saw her, she had this enthusiasm. And then as she started to miss, it started to curve and she started to crash. She's like, "I don't want to go, Daddy." I was like, "Baby, nothing great in life is easy to get. Everything that's great in life is hard to get, and it's even harder to keep."
Right.
So I said, "You got to keep struggling. You got to keep going. I'm going to support you, and we're going to get through this together." And when she made that final kill shot, and we got our hands on that deer, her tears, I mean, like, dude, you can't. I don't care who you are. But if you can give that same kind of joy to somebody else, your life is going to take you places you never even imagined, man. So it's definitely something we all need to focus on, and I hope we see more of it. The world's a dark place. It's always been a dark place. It's true. But there's always light. You just got to find it.
That's true. And you know what, Kent? Listening to you, it gives me all the hope in the world that we're going to keep going the way that we're going. Brother, I appreciate you tremendously. Thank you so much. I mean it. Thank you so much for joining us on the Oilfield Leader podcast. I think that you really gave us, a metric ton of valuable information, great insights, and shit. More than a few great quotes.
I try, brother.
Thank you, Kent. We'll see you soon. Okay, buddy?
All right. You good?
Take care. Bye. Bye.
The Oilfield Leader podcast is brought to you by executive producer Daniel Corral, executive producer Jim Lynn, executive producer and voice talent, me, Mad Mac, production assistant Caleb Knott. The Oilfield Leader podcast is produced and hosted by Christian Lombardini. Copyright 2023. The Oilfield Leader and Christian Lombardini, all rights reserved. Peace.